All right, thanks, Kyle, for giving us a detailed account about how our country organized checks and balances through the court system to keep the Constitution as the main law in our country. I'm going to just talk about understanding the court system a little better, and then how the Constitution is applied through the system, which is the main enforcer of the law. It is one system made up of many systems, meaning that there's the federal system and then 50 state systems, and then in each of those systems there's other systems. And all these systems are going to be multi-tiered as cases begin in the lower courts and move to higher courts. And so basically the state courts are going to represent lower court cases, and then the federal courts are going to represent the higher court cases. So now we're going to just understand the state court system a little better. Most legal cases are resolved in this system as a very vast system. They oversee a lot of things. They've overseen the O.J. Simpson trial, and they've seen a lot of cases. And then depending on the specific structure of your state court system, it will change. So there's going to be municipal courts, justice of the peace courts, county or circuit courts, or even regional trial courts. And then also most states have two levels of trial courts. They're going to have trial courts with limited jurisdiction and trial courts with specific jurisdiction. And jurisdiction just simply refers to the types of cases a court can hear. So limited jurisdiction will mainly have the majority of the cases, including they will have just civil cases, juvenile cases, minor criminal cases, and traffic violations. And so that's where most legal problems are going to be resolved. And then anything that's a little bit more specific is going to be in the specific jurisdiction. And then the next tier up in typical state court system are the appellate courts, as Kyle has talked about. And every state has a court of last resort, generally called the Supreme Court. And this cannot get confused with the U.S. Supreme Court. This is just the Supreme Court of that state. So now we're going to learn about the federal state system. Hang on a second. Most of the federal court system is divided into districts and circuits. There's at least one federal district in every state, but populous states can have like multiple districts. And so at the very top of the federal court system, as Kyle said, is the U.S. Supreme Court. And as he said, there's 9 justices who sit on the Supreme Court, nominated by the president and approved by the U.S. Senate. And a case usually has to work its way up through the lower tiers of the state court system and or the federal system. So for a case to get to the U.S. Supreme Court, it would have to go through a lot of cases, a lot of hearings just to get to that state. And then the Constitution only allows certain kinds of cases to be heard by the federal court. And these are issues of constitutional law, certain issues between residents of different states, issues between U.S. citizens and foreigners, and issues that involve both federal and state law. And they pick these because they believe that these are the most important issues that we need to control in the Constitution and have the best eye to look out for in this Constitution. And also with these, the U.S. Supreme Court, what they say is final word of law in this country. So that just shows the importance of a U.S. Supreme Court case, as it will be the final say in part of the Constitution. And so now there are some very, very important U.S. Supreme Court cases that we've obviously heard and read, talked about throughout. But one of them is Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. This ruling was the beginning of the end of racial segregation in America's public schools. And so this basically separated just all black schools and all white schools. They brought them together and kind of started to try to end racial segregation in America by starting at the public school level. Roe v. Wade gave all American women the right to decide for themselves in consultation with their doctor whether or not to have an abortion. And this is one that's very heavily debated, that the federal court deemed that women have the right to have an abortion, and that has been the law now. And it's been debated over, it's been talked about, and a lot of people have issues with it. A lot of people have comments, but that's what the U.S. Supreme Court says, and that's what it is. And lastly, Miranda versus Arizona. This ruling gave persons who are arrested the right to be informed of their legal rights at the time of their arrest. So basically, you have the right to remain silent, to read the Miranda rights. And this was a big case in the U.S. Supreme Court that has changed the police system. And so that is a little bit of just about the state system, the federal system, some cases they can hear, and some major cases that they have affected and that has actually affected our country as well. Thank you.